Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Min Ed Soda podcast with the doctor and the duffer. And the duffer is excited because we're getting closer and closer to golf season, even though this weather is not quite cooperating. It snows, it clears, it snows, it clears, but it still gives the duffer hope that I might be on the golf course soon. But how you doing, Todd? The doctor, Banner.
Gosh, I'm doing great. I am with you. I am a little tired of the schizophrenic weather that we're having. I am ready for 70-degree weather. I'm ready for all the little snow piles to be gone. I'm ready to go outside without a winter jacket on and walk the dog or just spend some time outside doing yard work. It's going to come eventually, but gosh, it sure is taking a long time to get here. I'm also not looking forward to like track meets and baseball games that our kids are participating in and having to go there with my insulated coveralls and winter jacket because otherwise I'm going to freeze to death.
When you have to wear your parka to your son's baseball game, that's a problem.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Hey, but that like totally reminds me though. You and I both University of Minnesota Morris graduates, right? Like there would be days on campus where you'd be in the center circle there around the student center and you could be in shorts and a t-shirt and be like comfortable. And then you'd go out to the baseball field way out on past the Phi Ed building and you would need your winter coat and your hat and gloves because you'd get out in the wind and it was like, holy buckets, what just
Yeah.
happened. I'm sure you can appreciate that memory as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Wind would come screaming down Cougar Hill there and light you up pretty dang good. And you look, it's like it's sunny and it looks like it's nice, but very deceptive.
Oh yeah, and like I said, inside the circle, right around the student center, there, you think,
Oh,
oh, it's just gorgeous today. It's gonna be
beautiful.
great to go out to the
Yeah.
ball game.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, bring your winter clothing. Always.
totally off script there, but
Yeah.
good memory.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, it has been a while. It's been a very long while since we've done a show, an
October.
episode.
October.
Yikers! But in
Yeah,
that
yikers.
time, you and I have actually presented a couple of different times and done some different things. And one of the big things that we've been hearing from principals here in Minnesota is the just like how like tough it is to get things in. They're being pulled in lots of different directions. They're subbing in classrooms. They're having to not as quite as much anymore. You know, some of the COVID tracking has gone away for those school leaders, but they're just still dealing with the results of the pandemic and short staffed and covering and doing different things. That time management has become the thing that people are just talking about all the time.
Yeah. And I think the time management piece really has helped some of the principals that I've been working with help them get back to what they enjoy. And that's the instructional leadership part of their job. So being very intentional with email, being intentional with calendars, and being true to what it is that you plan, not that you are so rigid that you can't go off script or go off your calendar and change things if you need to in an emergency. But some of the principals that I've been working with have really appreciated. It's almost like in listening to some of the things that we presented to them around organization and time management. It almost gives you the license to own your time.
We're giving them
Principals,
permission.
yeah, like principals want to have you want to have an open door policy, but when you have people coming in the door all the time, you can't get your work as a principal done. So and we're going to talk about that. Kip said earlier we're going to be presenting some things over a course of a few weeks here to give you some ideas on how you can get back some of your time. And some of these things, I don't know, Kip and we both said this isn't like earth-shattering stuff. We're not reinventing the wheel, but I think some of these are things that we're going to share with you are good reminders of how you can gain back the time that you need to get your work done.
And yeah, and so like for today, we're gonna with this episode, we're gonna start with some email things, but we are gonna dive into some calendar work. We're gonna dive into some delegation work. We're gonna dial into some productivity work as well. And none of these ideas are original to us, right? We've gotten them through like Iris productivity courses. We've got it through the book How to Get Things Done, the Minnesota Elementary Principals Association school office training. So we have begged, borrowed, and stolen just about everything we're going to share today.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but where we did make it somewhat original to us is those of you that are watching on YouTube. If you take our episodes in during YouTube, we just shared our screen, and we talk about this being like a diet, right? Like we're going to talk to you about some of these things, and it's like a diet. It takes willpower. You have to be willing to commit to it and to do it. And if you make a mistake and you fall off the wagon, you can get right back on it tomorrow, just like you can with a diet. You're only cheating yourself when you don't follow some of the things that we're about to share. And if it doesn't work for you, don't do it. Right. And
Perfect. And I would say a perfect example of that, Kip, is if you are a paper person, you keep a paper calendar or you have a task list on paper and that works for you, stay with it. Like if that, you don't have to flip over to electronic. I know a lot of people have electronic systems, like I know I do, obviously. And if that, whatever works for you, keep doing it. Do something.
yeah. And the last part about being like a diet, there's nothing earth shattering or new, right? Like I said, we've begged, borrowed, and stolen all of this. But what we are doing is we're giving you a permission, or as Todd said, we're giving you the license to be able to do this and take care of yourself, because you got to have that work balance and home life balance. If it's not there, you're not going to be able to take care of your staff, and you're not going to be able to take care of your family. So you got to be able to set yourself up in a way that you can be productive and efficient and effective.
Yeah. Do we want to do the self-assessment here, Kip, or do we want to skip
I was gonna.
we'll just skip right to the email pointers.
Yeah. Email is like the biggest time suck on the face of the earth, right?
Yes,
like,
it is.
It's one of those things that if you become addicted to your email, you're addicted to your email, right? You're always looking at it. If you have the badge up, you see I got an email, you're going to go check, and then it's going to get you off of focus and off a task and do some of those different things. And so we're going to have some pointers today to help you schedule your time for email to help you not be addicted.
And I would say that I would recommend to everybody only be checking email during designated times of your day. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, you are carving out that time to handle email. I don't know about you, Kip, but I know when I used to have my email on my phone and I would be walking around the building and I would get an email. So my phone would buzz. I would check it. I would open it up. And then I'd be like, oh, well, I need to respond to this person. For me, that didn't work because as soon as I opened it up, I thought about it. And then I'd get back to my desk and I would forget about it. Because as I got back to my computer at my desk, well, I don't have any unread emails. So I would forget about it. So for me, it really helped me to organize. As I see an email, I would do something with them. We're going to talk about that in one of our upcoming slides here. So,
and I'm with you. I was that phone junkie too, and it created several issues. One, I programmed the staff that I worked with to email me with every little thing because they knew I was going to see it quickly. I was going to respond quickly. And so I just programmed people to just keep emailing me because I was going to respond, and instead of having those designated times. And so that happened. And then the side effect of that was, what was I doing when I was walking down the hallway? I was pulling up my phone, I was looking at my emails, and I was scanning through. And then instead of interacting with people in the hall.
And I think that really ties into the last bullet point that's on the screen. When you do that, like you and I used to, people would use email as instant messaging. Okay. So if they had an emergency, they were emailing us instead of having another system set up for emergencies. So, if something is going down in the building and you need to be notified, tell staff, call the office. They will get a hold of me because they are going to know where I am. So my administrative assistants would call me on the radio or they would text me. That was the emergency system for getting a hold of me, not email. So I don't know if you want to speak to that.
No, I'm with you 100%. But for those not on YouTube, we had 3 bullet points on this slide. The first one being only check email during designated times. Set up 15-minute chunks 4 times a day, right? Like that's still an hour of email.
And you will use that whole hour, trust me.
And for me, I also use that time to make phone calls. So it was kind of like this communication time. But then the other one is make sure you're turning off or pausing your email during those other times. Those of you that have either Outlook or Gmail, there is an app called Boomerang where you can pause your email inbox and it just doesn't let things to come. There are other apps out there too. Boomerang used to be free. I don't know that it is anymore.
I don't think it is.
But there's still ways of just making sure you turn it off, because I was that junkie, right? The badge junkie. You could see the parentheses with a 1 in it, even though I was on a different tab on my computer, I could see it. And then I'd want to know who it was from, and I would go check, and then that would take me off the task, whatever task I was supposed to be doing. And then it might take me down a rabbit hole to several other things as well. So making sure you turn it off and are not checking your email except during your designated times. And then, as Todd said, make sure you're setting up systems for stakeholders to find you in an emergency, which is call the office. They're going to find us. Because that did happen to me, where like somebody would email me something, but it was a day that I was out of the office and I didn't have access to my email. And then they were irate a few hours later when I hadn't responded yet. Well, the answer was I didn't have access to my email. But again, I programmed them to do that.
Yep.
So then, the other thing, Todd, is when we've got a cluttered inbox, right? That I bet you there are principals listening to us right now that have 1,000 emails in their inbox.
I was that guy.
Right. Like, and so we got to find a way to get rid of that. That's a problem.
Well, and then let me talk about the first 2 bullet points on this slide, Kip, because I want you to talk about the last 3, because I know you have a really good system in place for that. If that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first bullet on the slide is use filters and or labels. So Kip and I are both Google or we're Gmail users. So we can set up filters or categories in which we can slide emails into. So I'm talking about things like that. If you have a subscription to something from MDE, or if it's like ASCD or any of these organizations that sent out emails on a regular basis.
Your time cards. If you approve time cards and you get all the emails as soon as all your paraprofessionals start submitting their time cards, and you start getting an email saying Joni Smith has submitted her time card, Paul Johnson has submitted his time card. These are the things that you want to filter and label and just have it skip your inbox.
The inbox. Yep. Have it go right to a folder. And then when you set aside time in your calendar to sign time cards, boom, you've got them all right in one spot. You can go through and approve things like that. So find ways in which you can keep things out of your inbox.
You said it with Google, right? It's filters and labels. Well, in Outlook, it is rules. There's rules that you can set up and create the same kind of system where it takes all those things, whether it's an email from a certain individual or a certain type of subject heading. You can set the rules and have it slide it right into a folder for you.
Yeah. The second bullet point here is take time to unsubscribe. And I know that that's not like a fun thing for people to do, is you feel like you're wasting your time unsubscribing to, oh gosh, you name it, like ads and magazines and stuff like that. If you are not reading those things, like you kind of keep track of what you're reading over the course of time. If there are things that you don't read, it's okay to unsubscribe. At the bottom of each one of those emails, there should be a little link saying unsubscribe. If you're not using it, click on the link to unsubscribe. Take the 10 seconds that you need to unsubscribe. Keep that stuff out of your inbox. So Kip, I'm going to have you talk about the last 3 bullet points because I love the system that you have set up for this.
Yeah, one is create a back burner folder. It's just, you're just creating a folder within your system. So like when something comes in, like maybe it's an advertisement for a webinar, or it is a staff member has sent you an email with a list of some ideas of things to consider, but they're not things that you're going to address right now, or they become they're more like a pipe dream maybe, and we're going to do it with them later. You slide them into the back burner folder so that when maybe it's summertime and you've got a little bit more time to dig deeper and figure out more, you go to your back burner folder and pull some of those things out when you've got time to work on them. The next one is create like a reply by day or a follow-up on day folder. So within your mailbox, you're going to have a Monday folder, a Tuesday folder, a Wednesday folder, a Thursday folder, and a Friday folder. So I get this email, right? And it's about a meeting that I'm going to have on Friday, and it's got some attachments and different things that I'm going to need for Friday. I can slide it into my Friday folder. I don't have to leave it in my inbox. So I can just slide it right into my Friday folder so that I know where it is. But yet now my inbox isn't nearly as cluttered. So I'm looking at it. I'm deciding which day, or maybe it's even I need to reply by a certain day, but I want time to process it and think about it. But I don't want to forget about it. So instead of leaving it in my inbox, I slide it to Wednesday. And Wednesday during my email time, I'm going to reply to that email. But it gives me time to process and think. But yet empties out my inbox at the same time. And then the last one is creating a task on your calendar for items to be addressed later. So like if I get this email and I know it's going to take me an hour to do whatever task it's asking me to do, I'm going into my calendar right now and I'm creating a calendar item to address that. So I'm gonna do it Friday at 2:00. Because I need to have it for next Wednesday. But I'm gonna do it on Friday. So if some emergency happens, I've got some leeway on the next couple of days. But it's ultimately just creating, getting things out of my inbox and putting them someplace else where I will know exactly where they are, and they will be on the day in the folder that I need them. Moving on, some more email tips and pointers, and this is one where you're probably a little bit better than I am.
Well, I don't know about that. There's the idea around having a zero inbox, and I think all of us we strive to have a zero inbox. And when I say zero inbox, I mean you have no messages in your inbox. You have done something with them. You've deleted them. You've handled them. You've put them in a folder or whatever. I am not one of those people that gets to zero inbox as hard as I try. But going back to the first idea about this is a diet, when you fall off, then at some point you're going to get back on. So there are times that I zero out my inbox and I start over. So the bullet points that are on this screen about trying to get to that inbox zero is with your email, do something with it. So if there are certain things that I see in my email box, I'll see it. And if I know it's not relevant to what I'm going to be working on that day, I delete it. Like I might open it, I might not, but I'm going to delete it. Sometimes I'm going to file those things, especially if I'm working on certain projects where it's an informational thing. I will slide it over into one of the categories that I have identified in my email. Many times I will add it to my task list. Or if I don't add it to my task list, I will create a calendar event to work on this. So if Kip and I are working on a project and I need to address something, I'll go to the next day or whenever it is that I have time to work on it. I'll create a 30-minute, an hour long, or however long I need. I will make a calendar event, and that time is blocked off in my day to work on that specific thing.
And that's where you and I are different, because you kind of do run a task list of like things to do. I go right to the calendar.
Yeah.
So you kind of create a task list where I just create calendar events. But that's because that's what works for us.
Yep.
Right. Like, so for me, it's much better to just say, okay, this is going to take me 45 minutes. I'm just going to put it on my calendar for tomorrow. And then I can delete the inbox or delete the email, or I can copy and paste information from that email right into my calendar event, the pieces that I will need as part of my information.
Yep. And the last bullet point on this slide is respond. If it's an email, like if he's emailing me about recording the podcast and he wants to know what time works for me or what topics we want to discuss, that's something I can probably respond to him, and I can do it in less than 2 minutes. So I'm just going to open that email up. I'm going to respond to him and be done with it. And then I'm going to delete that email. So that's just basically it's the 2-minute rule, right? If you can open something and address it in 2 minutes or less, do it. If you can't, then you either put it in your task list or you schedule a calendar event to deal with it.
So we open up an email, we've got 4 choices. We read it and delete it. We read it and file it. We read it and add it to our calendar, or we read it and respond to it if it's going to take us less than 2 minutes. That's how you get to work your way towards inbox zero. Just handle that email one time.
Are you at inbox 0, Kip?
No, I'm probably closer to inbox 10.
Pretty good. That's pretty good.
It's not. And there's some things there I just haven't filed it, right. I kind of leave it on the front because I want the reminder that I should be sliding it into my back burner and be setting up time that I'm going to my back burner file. But that's where I've fallen off the wagon, right? Like, I leave a select few up there, but I really should be sliding those into a back burner or setting up a calendar event. I just haven't.
And the nice thing about Gmail is that, and I forget this at times, you can always archive stuff. You know, if you archive it, it's still there. It's not like you've thrown it out. So don't forget about using archive.
Yeah. Well, our next slide is just that reminder that the E in email stands for evil. That it is not for sensitive information, right?
Oh my gosh, all these years I thought E was for electronic mail, but it's actually, God, okay, I got it.
But these are the things that are going to get you. I mean, like putting a kid's name in an email, right? Like that now that becomes public information to that student's parents, right? Like it becomes, so just, there's anything that's sensitive, it's better to talk in person, put a see me as a response, or let's set up a meeting to chat about this.
That's even better. But
don't be responding to sensitive information in an email, because it will come back and bite you. It may not be a big deal that, whatever it happens to be, but it certainly can, and it's just better. And, there's times you just don't want a paper trail.
Encourage your staff to do that as well. If they need to discuss sensitive information about students with you, encourage them to come and have a conversation about it. Don't put it in an email.
And I've gone as far as like, okay, I understand that sometimes you want to get me the information before we meet so that I've got time to process or think about it, but then just don't use names. Like, I've got a student in my class and this situation occurred, right? Like, but don't give any kind of indicator of who the student is.
Yes, correct.
Right? Like just, and that's okay. But even that is not preferable, right? I would prefer if you could get me in person, but you know what? Maybe I'm gone for the day and you want to make sure I'm ready to address it first thing in the morning. And so you have to do something that way. Well, then just make sure you're not identifying students.
Correct.
And as a principal, that you're not identifying staff members. Right? It all comes back to bite you. So the E in email is for evil.
Well, yeah, and with that, we're going to move on to, I think this is our last slide that we're going to talk about today. Other pointers, especially around, Kip, I want you to share your example around canned responses, especially in springtime of the year. The first bullet point says keep canned responses to common emails readily available. And you've got the example of parent requests for teachers. Tell us that story real quickly.
Sure. In one of the school districts that I worked in, we kind of allowed parents to have an input of what teachers they would want to have for their child. And we kind of said, well, you can't give me just one and think it's going to be there. Give me three. Because we often had 6 or 7 teachers per grade level. So, give me 3 so that we've got some flexibility. But they had to submit their request in writing. And so most of them did it through email. And so I just had a canned response that was, that I would personalize it at the beginning, but the heart of the email was a canned response. And it would be something along the lines of like, hey, thank you for your input. We really value it. And we did. We very much took it into consideration. But we value your input, but I also want you to know that by submitting this, it's not a guarantee that you'll get what you wish. There's a lot of factors that go into creating balanced classrooms, yada, yada, yada. And, so thank you for this. And so that was for like the email that I had for people that submitted the request on time. And then there was a different one that was for the parents that submitted their request late. There was one that's when they submitted it in like August. And then there was one that when they submitted it after class lists and they weren't happy. Right. But they were basically canned responses that I could just tweak and personalize. So instead of taking 20 minutes to type that up every time, just copy and paste. And in Google, there is something now called canned response where you can do that. And then actually, as a principal leadership support, I use it sometimes too, of like, hey, it's been a while since we've connected. Just want to check in. And so then you can set it up to send to all the different principals that we've been working with or different things, but you can still personalize it within the canned response. But it can even be as simple as just having like a Word document on your screen, on your lap or on your homepage that you just open up, copy, and then paste it in the email and go. And so those canned responses, when you know that you're going to be doing 10, 15, 20, or in the case of those parent requests, it was over 100 a spring, right? Like that I wasn't retyping that email to say the same thing every time. Mm-hmm. So those canned responses for those types of things are awesome.
And I'm going to have you, why don't you talk about that next bullet about using an app such as Boomerang? You talked about that a little bit earlier, but you have used that app more than I have. So I want you to talk about that.
Yeah, Boomerang is an app that you can, and Google has actually updated some of their things. So Google now does a few of these things too, like the scheduling of emails and doing different things. But Boomerang allows you to, one, schedule emails. So like, I was working with a principal, for example, and we were doing a book study together, and he liked the reminder before the weekend, before our meeting, to remind him to read the book. And so we'd be meeting today, and then our next meeting would be like May 5th. So on May 2nd, like as we were sitting here talking, I would set an email to go out on May 2nd that said, hey, remember to read chapter 2 over the weekend so that you're ready to talk on Monday. And then you just hit send, and it holds it in a place until May 2nd, and then it sends it off. You can now do that with Google too. Google lets you do that. The other thing that I really liked about Boomerang is it allowed you to pause your inbox. So like if I don't want to, if I know I struggle with the badges and turning my email off, you can just pause your inbox and it won't let new emails get to your screen unless you designate, like I say, well, Todd Van Erp is so important. His can always come through. So you can set rules for it, but otherwise you just pause it and say, I'm going to pause it until 2:00. And then at 2:00, all the emails that came from the time you hit pause until 2:00 show up in your inbox at once. So if you really get good at scheduling your email time, right, that's what you could do, is you could just always have your inbox paused except for your window time that you're doing your emails. Mm-hmm. And the other one that Boomerang does, and this is where it gets its name, is you can actually boomerang an email to yourself. And so it was kind of the reference point I made earlier of like, oh, this is for a meeting on Friday. I could, instead of filing that, I could boomerang that email to come back to me. So the meeting's on Friday at 9. I could boomerang that email to leave my inbox, and then it sends it back to me on Friday morning at 8:30. So I could set the time that I want it to come back to me. So boomerang has been great. Like I said, I think they've now gone to some cost features. I was using a free version for a while. I haven't updated, but I've been getting some emails that also now they're working on so that you can like do appointment slots in an email through Boomerang as well. There's different things coming that it's worth looking into if the cost isn't too much for you to handle.
And the last bullet point on this slide is use voice to text functions to draft emails. And that is something that on Gmail now, I actually have that function available that if I want to voice in an email and I know it's going to be rather lengthy, I can voice in my ideas. And then obviously like I always go back and edit the email, but then it prevents, or it not prevent, it keeps me from having to type all of that text into an email. There are other programs out there like Google Docs has a voice to text feature as well that you can use. I have used
drag and drop.
I've used Dragon Naturally Speaking. That's a voice to text software that I used during my dissertation. That really learns your voice, and like I typed many pages using Dragon Naturally Speaking. So there are a lot of options out there as far as voice to text software that you can use to help make yourself more efficient in getting messages out to teachers, to parents, things like that. So don't hesitate to tap into those features.
Well, those are our email pointers to help you from being addicted to your email and having your email becoming your biggest time suck of your day. And because it's easy to have it happen, right? Like you start opening up an email and then that takes you to a different task. And then while you're doing that task, a different email comes in and that takes you to a different task. Next time when we come back, we're going to dig a little bit into using our calendar and using our calendar as our agenda for the day and making sure we stick to it. And some tips and pointers and ideas we have around that. But these email pointers they're quick, they're simple, but like we said at the beginning, it is like a diet. You can choose to use them or you can choose not to. And if you choose not to, then you're also choosing the consequences that come with that, which is email is going to continue to take away your time.
Yep, exactly. And if you start using these things and you fall off the wagon, just like a diet, you can always climb back on. So believe you me, it's happened to me a number of times. So don't give yourself grace.
Yeah. And if you want to talk more about either of these, get a hold of Todd or I at Principal Learner on Twitter for Todd, at Kip Link, all one word, on Twitter for me, or through our emails if you are contacting with us through the Principal Leadership Support Network. Find us. We'll help you out.
We're kind of geeks about this stuff. So, we love this stuff. Love finding ways to be more productive.
Yeah. Well, what else you got before we call it a day here, Todd?
What else do I have? Man, the spring is coming fast and furious. Easter's right around the corner, and hopefully we can get one more episode in next week or a couple of weeks from now. I think
we're trying to get better. We put it on our calendar. Yeah. We're using our resources and following our own advice. I think we're 2 weeks out before we do another one. As I'm looking ahead on my calendar. But yeah, we should be back in about 2 weeks with the episode on the calendar and calendar use. And between now and then, if you can help start getting your email under control, then you might get a little bit more help out of that calendar use one too.
Yeah. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help.
All right. Well, for the doctor, Todd Van Erp, I'm the duffer, Kip Link. Looking forward to hopefully some time on the golf course here soon. Have a great couple weeks, and hopefully we get back with another Min Ed Soda podcast soon.
Take care of yourself, everyone.